All right, we are live.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the iFilmmaker podcast. My name is Ariel Martinez, and with me is Mr. Cervitelli. And today we're going to have a very relatively quick one to answer one question, which I got to say, I'm having a tough time finding. I think that's funny. But I do remember the premise of the question.
Yeah, that works.
So let's just go ahead and just actually, before we do that, I just want to remind you guys that we are broadcasting live on YouTube, and we always keep a chat room open for those of you that want to join us live and ask your questions. And if you don't know that, it's because you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel. So we invite you to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get these notifications, know when we're live, because again, we do this very sporadically. Oh, sorry, that was not muted. And we do this very sporadically, and so you can get notifications every time we go live.
Yeah, I get them because I'm subscribed. Even when I know we're going live, I still get one on my phone. It says that we're live, so I know when we're up and running.
Awesome. And one more thing before we get started on our question here, you just did a behind the scenes video that was quite nice, and you already posted it. Tell us about that.
I did, man. It was for our documentary. It was a big thank you pretty much to the people that helped us and sponsored us, kind of to give us gear, or whether it was to come out and help shoot with us for as PAs or BTS shooters or audio guys. Just a nice thing to put together to show what we did and how we got it together. It doesn't really show too much behind the scenes of the content. It's just more so of the gear we were using, the people we were with. So it was pretty cool. I thought it came out pretty nice, and it's check it out over on my channel, YouTube, Jersey Filmmaker. It's up and running. It's up there.
The video looks pretty cool. I definitely advise you guys to go check that out. So moving on, I thought this was an interesting question. So basically the question was, what is, as a beginner filmmaker asking for the best bang for your buck camera? They were specifically asking about my Sony FS5, right? Mm-hmm. They were asking if I feel that that's the best bang for your buck camera. But I think that there can be two different categories, because even for me starting off, I was never able to afford a Sony FS5 starting off. Yeah, sure. So I think that we can approach this from two different standpoints. I would say three, but the third category would be considering like $15,000 cameras and above. Sure. So I think that that's out of the question because I don't really assess those kinds of cameras. So we can go ahead and start from beginner cameras, meaning SLR, DSLRs, sub $3,000 cameras. Okay. And then anything else in between $3,000 and $12,000 cameras. Okay. Sound fair? Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and start off with beginner cameras. When I started, my first camera was a Canon T3i.
Same.
So and this was I think that was a lot of people's starting camera. Yeah. Back then it was a really good camera for what it would shoot. I think back then it was even, I don't know what it costs now actually, but
now there's like T5i, 6i. I don't even know where.
Right. And I think it's pretty much for like the same price, maybe.
Yeah, $600, $800 in that range with like the kitted lens, probably. I think.
Yeah, and it was a really good option back then. It shot 1080p video, up to 30 frames per second. I don't remember the ISO performance being that good. But, it's what you would expect from a camera at that price range at that time. So it was a very popular beginner camera back then. So take that aside. Let's go into the now. What's available now? Yep. At a sub $3,000 price point. There's a lot of options. Obviously, I think one of the most popular ones currently is the Panasonic Gh4.
Yes.
So it's just under $2,000.
The Gh4 is that cheap?
Yeah.
Oh,
you didn't know that?
And maybe I'll get myself one. Nah.
I think, yeah, that's. I keep going back and forth and back.
It is just under $2,000. You're right.
You have it there?
I do.
What is it?
1997.99. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just under $2,000. Now, what you get for this price, right, is obviously 4K. At this point, you should want to go for a camera that does 4K video, right? Because you're kind of basically future proofing. I'm even getting calls, like clients specifically asking for 4K. So it's something that you should have in your gear arsenal. So 4K, obviously. Now, one great benefit of this, if you're into coloring and all that stuff, it does 10-bit 422 internal in 4K. And that is a huge thing for me, especially. I love that. But let's go back to beginners now. If you're a beginner, I wasn't into that. I didn't even know what that meant back then.
Right.
So it's not a big deal. Now, this does have good slow motion.
Okay.
The slow motion capabilities of the GH5. Let me actually go back and give you the exact specs on that. But you still have it there?
I do. I'm looking right now.
So what I have here, let me see the specs. I know it has.
It looks like you do 60 frames at UHD, so not full 4K, which it also does offer at 24 frames a second.
Yeah, but I mean UHD 4K. I know the difference. You're losing like one.
You're losing. It's 17:9 instead of 16:9 as far
exactly. It's not a huge difference.
I just want to.
I always deliver my 16:9 videos for everything. But yeah, it's basically 4K UHD. If you know the difference, you know that.
But I want to keep that clear for later because it's going to come into play when we talk about the bigger cameras as well. So it does. Yeah. So it does full 4K at 24 and 25 frames per second if you need that, and the UHD goes up to 60 frames per second, which is really great. I mean, you don't get that at 4K on many cameras at all. Right. Especially in this range of price, this price range.
All right. Yeah. So it does good 4K. I mean, as you saw, you do get 4K at up to 60 frames per second. Now, let me point out that once you go to 4K 60 frames, you go down
to 8-bit.
Yeah. But again, if you're a beginner starting off with this camera, this is probably not something you're too concerned about right now. Right.
I mean, look, even as a professional, you know how the FS5 works. When you go up to 4K, you go down to 8-bit.
Right.
You're pushing it out externally, so that it can happen at different levels too. So it's just a matter of how you deal with it.
The downside to this camera, I would say, is the small sensor.
Oh, 100%.
That's a huge. That I keep coming back to that when I with regards to my purchasing it or not, because I love the camera. I love all the specs about it. Everything about it is really nice. But when I think about that small sensor, the small. Like I'm gonna need extra room to work with. Sometimes, like the other day, I had to do an interview with 2 people in front of the camera, and the space was very small, right? And if I would have been shooting on a GH5, I would have had to back up a lot, which I didn't have the luxury of doing.
Right.
So that's something that I'm constantly thinking about. And the low light performance, it's atrocious.
Well, with the small sensor comes the crappier low light performance. But also, what concerns me too is the micro 4/3. I'm sorry, not the sensor. The lens attachment. Why can't I think now? I'm stuck between
the adapter.
Yeah. What is it? It's a micro 4/3.
Yeah, there is. There's
lens adaptation, right?
Right. There's a Metabone speed booster that you can use.
Specifically. I'm sorry. I was getting confused. I don't know why I was thinking about sensor size, but yeah, the micro 4/3. I know there's obviously other Metabones, but I'd also have to purchase that with my purchase. So it's just another thing.
That's a $700 purchase.
Yeah. So
almost half the camera. Yeah. So. Now that's one. All right. So I kind of want to, with the whole swivel screen, and then you have the awesome accessories that come with it that you can attach XLRs, but I want to stay away from accessories. I just want to talk about the cameras as they come, as is. So that's the GH5. There's also the Sony A7S, obviously Mark II. That is a fantastic buy. It's actually more expensive than this camera. I would say Mark III, but obviously that's not out yet, so can't really talk about that. So the Mark II, so the Sony A7S Mark II And let me just throw in there the A7S, I mean, A7R Mark II and Mark III are good additions to that. I think the Mark III comes out to a little bit more than 3,000, but maybe $100 past. But I think it's still a great place to put this camera in. Fantastic cameras. It doesn't have the same specs in terms of color rendition, since it's just 8-bit images. However, the colors are gorgeous, especially when you're shooting in, not if you're not shooting S-Log2, S-Log3, and you're you let the camera do the coloring for you. They're actually, I gotta admit, they're really, really nice. But once you start shooting S-Log2, S-Log3, and you start touching the colors, you're getting yourself into dicey territory, because
as a beginner, for sure.
Exactly. You're it's very unforgiving, put it that way.
Right.
So what I want to say about those cameras is, obviously the Sony A7S series line is just the low light beast.
Yeah.
We cannot argue that. You got your full frame also. So what I hate that the GH5 doesn't have this camera, or these cameras have it. They have the space.
Yep.
The A7S has 120 frames at 1080.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the GH5 has that. I'm not sure. I think it has it though. What else? I mean,
the price wise, A7S2 is now $2,400. The A7R2 is also $2,400. The A7R3 is $3,200. So, there's a little bit of a price difference there, but so and we've spoken about the A7R series in another episode, but if you're looking for beginning video only, if you're choosing between those two, I would recommend the A7S2 because of the low light performance and being able to shoot stuff like that and get cinematic in lower lit situations would be really nice. But if you're someone that's beginning and you're doing both photo and video, I would recommend the R series, and especially the newer one, but a little more pricey, but the newer one is pumping out some nice images on both ends. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The one thing that I would definitely like to point out, right? Both Panasonic and Sony are very good companies with regards to listening to their audience. Mm-hmm. Every time they come out with a new camera, it seems like they listen to what we're asking for. So you see this, it's very true. When the GH4, I don't think that there was a lot to be said about that camera. It was such a good camera. I think it was kind of sort of revolutionary with regards to SLR cameras, and mirrorless cameras, basically. And I if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the first 4K camera of that kind. Do not quote me on that. It's just going by my memory. I might be completely wrong. But that's the first one that I remember seeing that was 4K. Then obviously the A7S Mark II came out, and so on and so forth. So, Panasonic, and they didn't change too much about it. They just gave it better specs. The body is a little bit bigger, but everything seems to be right where it was before. Now it's completely different on Sony though. Sony A7R Mark III, it's way more ergonomic in terms of usage. They completely changed the placement of the record button from the side all the way to the middle, right next to the viewfinder, where you can easily press it. Again, they listen to their audience. Everybody hated that.
I've gotten so used to that, man. It's gonna be a pain for me to find the other button now.
Yeah, no, it's actually going to be easier. Like, it's nice and thick, and it pops out. So
the one now is so small. I mean, I know exactly where it is, and I still miss it.
No, what I always did was I made one of the custom buttons my record button. Like, I think it was C1 that I made, which is right next to the shutter button.
Yeah.
But I still don't know why they won't put the shutter button to record. Maybe they did on the A7R3. I don't know. No. I doubt it. I think I would have heard it by now. All right, so moving on. Those cameras right there, the A7S, A7R series, are all great cameras, great bang for your bucks. I don't know if there's one that I would pick over the other. In my situation, the way that I shoot, I would personally pick the Sony A7S, A7R series, or the sensor size for the low light performance, etc. We have a question from Danny Mirabal asking, does the GH5 take good pictures? I've seen good pictures, but we're really...
I've never even seen a picture from it, actually.
Yeah, I've seen good pictures from both cameras. I think when it comes to stills, I'm not a photographer, so I really cannot give a valuable opinion on that. But, for the sake of videography, filmmaking, and what we do, I think cinematically we would definitely get better performance from the bigger sensor, from the A7S, A7R series. So with regards to video, that it's better to go with A7S because that's catered more toward video. And the A7R is the other way. So what other beginner cameras?
Well, I'm looking back here at the Canon Rebel series, so the T series, and it looks like they're up to the T3i, and it comes with the 18 to 55 millimeter lens, kit set sort of thing for $600, which is, I think that's about right for what the T3i was at the time.
Right.
Actually, it says price $900, and right now there's a holiday savings of $300, so it's on sale for $600. It also includes a bag and a card, a 16 gigabyte card. But if you really are beginner, this is a great way to start. I mean, like we said, we both have done the same thing, and it's a really nice kit to get you going. So
I gotta say, man, I don't know that I can, at this point, I don't know that I can recommend any of the Canon cameras for the sole purpose of it's still not shooting 4K.
Right.
We have the A6300 that I shoot all the time, and I still love the camera. It's so freaking sharp. The colors are great. Gorgeous, gorgeous.
What's an A6300 cost? Let's see.
That's like $800 right now.
Oh, wow. Actually, there's a T7i as well. But you're right. I'm actually about to get rid of my Canon 5D Mark III.
Right.
And I've been thinking about adding the A7R too, because I've actually been doing more photo. We talk about not doing photos, and I really don't do much. But I'm actually going to brag here for a second because I'm really proud of this. I just finished a job for Sam's Club. So I do some work for Sam's Club and Walmart and Jet.com, which are all kind of one company now. And on Sam's / Walmart's career site are some of my pictures, which is pretty cool. So
very cool.
Yeah, they just put them up. I'm really happy about that. But I'm considering getting, and I did those with the Canon 5D Mark III, which is great. But I still feel like I know that the images out of the A7R III are better, and like I still want to do better. And it has the video, so I'm considering selling that to put it towards getting that to up my photography game as well. So
now you're gonna get the A7R III or R2?
3.
Oh, okay. You said 2 earlier, I think.
Did I? My bad.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, why wouldn't you just get the 3?
Yeah, no, 3. So the A6300 kit is $1,000 or less, depending on which lens you get it with. There's one 55 to 210,
right?
Which is actually there's 2. I'm sorry. There's a 16 to 50 and 55 to 210 in the set for $1,000, just under $1,000 right now. And then there's one with just a 16 to 50 that's $850. That's a really great deal for those 2 lenses in that camera. You're right. You know what? Maybe I should retract my Canon.
Yeah. So what I also want to kind of focus on here is just cameras alone. Like anything that you add on top of that is just butter. If you could get a whole kit with it, that's great. The more lenses you can get in your starter kit, that's fantastic. But what I want to kind of emphasize on is the performance of the camera alone. Take every accessory, every lens, anything that you have to add to it aside, Sure. So on B&H, you have the A6300 body alone, $750.
Yeah, $750.
$750. That is absurd for the quality of this camera. And that's why when I see the Canon T6 or T3i, whatever they are at now in the Rebel series, it's not even worth it. It's not even close to worth it. We're talking about video here. And the fact that you get 4K, and mind you, it is an APS-C size sensor, but it shoots 6K and delivers a 4K result, and that 4K result, I got to say, it's one of the sharpest I've ever seen. Yeah. I got to tell you.
It's back ordered right now.
Yeah, because it's so... Oh, yeah, look at that. It's back ordered, but it's in still such a high demand. This is the A6300.
And same thing, 120 frames at 1080, which the Canons are not doing.
Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, you can get S-Log if you want to go that too.
S-Log.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm 100%.
And so,
right.
And now we have now we have the body for the A6500 is at 1,200, which is a huge jump up. I actually thought it was much cheaper. I thought it was like at 1,000 by now or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a Black Friday deal or something that I saw earlier. But same thing, except this one has touchscreen. The A6500 has touchscreen. It has the internal image stabilization, which I think is quite valuable. That is actually the biggest value I find in the A6500 over the A6300, because I'm not too crazy about the touchscreen. But I think both of these cameras are great options.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's a much bigger price difference than I thought, actually. The 750, and then you go straight to 1,200.
Yeah.
I think for that alone, the A6300, in terms of bang for your buck, that's what we're talking about. The most you get out of your money. I think the A6300 is probably up there, man.
Yeah, you're right.
750 for bang for your buck. The only difference on this than the GH5 is a 1080p. I'm sorry, it's the 10-bit, right? And the 4K at 60, which is very valuable. But we're talking about like $1,100-$1,200 difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
So in terms of bang for your buck, I think the A6300 is like one of the top dogs right there in that area for starters.
Yeah,
for beginners.
If you're trying to get into it, I think that's perfect. If you're just beyond that and looking to take the next step, but not quite the next step we're about to talk about, probably, then I think maybe the GH5 is in that realm. You know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Or the A7S2 or something like that. Yeah,
I'm definitely in favor. As far as me, for my purchases, I would go ahead and get, I'm honestly praying so much that the A7S Mark II has 10-bit 4K. That's
Mark III.
Mark III, that's what I mean. I just did the same thing you did. So I'm praying that the A7S Mark III has that 10-bit 4K. That would be just gorgeous. I would be so happy. I would place my pre-order and just sit still for that camera like this in front of my door.
We have Danny asking on YouTube, what about audio? I don't think we're going to talk about audio equipment right now, but all of these cameras do have the 1/8" jack or whatever size that is, which you can feed audio into. It's not going to be great. You're not going to have a lot of control over it, but it does work for beginners. And then, if you start adding external audio accessories but something like a Rode Video Mic Micro or Video Mic Pro would be something you can use to get started for sure.
Yeah. I gotta say though, even that being said, all these cameras, the internal mic, I think in most situations are sufficient enough to pick up scratch audio.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the Sony cameras are really good with that scratch audio.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, oh yeah. I wouldn't use it as my primary audio. I would never do that.
Right.
But I was surprised the first time I've ever used it, and I went to go and sync up the audio, how clear it sounded.
Yeah.
For being scratch audio from internal microphone and from an internal microphone, and I was very, very surprised at that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So, all right. So I think we're done with beginner cameras. I think I know we didn't talk anything about Nikon. I don't know
much about them, to be honest.
Me neither. When it comes to Nikon and video,
Nikon's, they're known for their stills more so.
Exactly.
I really don't know one. I definitely don't know one professional that uses Nikon for video. Not one.
I don't either.
Yeah. So there's no need to talk about that.
All right. I know we're going to have a lot of Nikon lovers
hating on us. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So all right, so let's go on to the mid-grade, which I think it's where we're at in terms of cameras and purchasing and whatnot, and I think we can have a good voice on this. Now, best bang for your buck for a $3,500 to, let's say, $12,000 camera. What are the options? What are the prices? What do they offer, etc.?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and start off with the beginner ones right here that are kind of lined up with our FS5, at least my FS5. I know you have FS7 and red and whatnot, but anyways, let's start off with the FS5. You have the FS5, you have the Canon, you have Canon's cinema line, you have the C100 Mark II. I believe that's where it would start to compete. Then you have this, now is the Panasonic Evo 1. And am I missing one? I feel like I'm missing one. All All right. From there, I mean, from there we can move on to
FS7. I mean, are you
the Sony FS? Right. No, I was thinking there was one before that, but anyways, we can go on to the FS7. Now we have the C200 Mark, the C200. No, just the C200 period from Canon. Then we also have the
300 Mark II.
The C what? The C300 Mark II, correct? That's at 12,000 now, I think. 10, 12,000.
It's a 10.
10,000. And then we have, where are we at? What was the Raven's at 15,000, right?
Well, the Raven kit is 15,000. Yeah.
The Raven body is 12,000, right?
The body is 9. The body itself is 9, but it's not operational without some other things, whereas you buy an FS7 or a C300, they're operational. You just got to throw a lens on them, and I actually think they come with batteries as well. The Raven doesn't. It's just the body. You need a unit, a V mount unit or a gold mount unit to put on the back to even put a battery on it. You need to buy a screen or you can't see anything, a monitor. So yeah, it's 9,000, but it's not operational. It's very a la carte, and they make them very modular for a reason, and it's very, very awesome because you can do a lot of different things with them. But it's hard to put a price on what you need to get started. It's closer to 15,000. That kit gets you started with everything.
Gotcha. We also have actually in the chat room here, they're saying the FS7 Mark II is also a contender. But I feel like, all right, a lot of people were really upset with Sony. They said that when the FS7 Mark II came out, it was such a high price, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Oh yeah, besides the variable ND, right?
Right, that was the biggest change.
I think that was the biggest change. Like I've had the FS7. I had no desire to upgrade to the Mark II when it happened. Like none. I mean, the variable ND is really awesome, but I wasn't going to, that would have cost me to sell mine now and then try to buy that would have cost me a few $1,000s probably. So what, just for the variable ND, I can deal with just the regular steps of internal ND. Yeah, I didn't like that upgrade either.
It would have been easier to just get variable ND filters on your lenses if needed.
Check this out. I'm looking at on B&H right now. And the FS7, looks like the Mark I, is selling with the extension unit kit for $8,500. So for those who don't know, the extension unit used to be, I don't know if it still is, $2,000, right? $2,000 to output RAW on the FS7. And the FS7, when I bought it, was $8,000. So that was a total of $10,000. And now they're selling the FS7 with it for $8,500. Now, granted, there's an FS7 too, there, so that makes a big difference. But
I wonder, does the FS7 II require the extension unit to output RAW?
I believe so. I'll look right now, but I believe so.
So, all right. Again, I kind of want to focus on internal recording.
Yes,
without accessories. Yes, but I will say that the biggest reason I have the FS5 is because of that. I didn't require an extension unit and V-Lock batteries to then get that raw output. I'm able to get that directly from the camera onto my Odyssey. So that's the biggest reason why I got it. So anyways, so the FS5 records 4K internal, obviously, up to 30 frames. Unfortunately, it only does it at 8-bit, which does really suck. So you have your regular HD at up to 240 frames per second. It starts buffering at 120 though. So you could go continuous recording up to 60, but then when you want to shoot 120 or 240, it's done off a buffer, which sometimes is okay because I kind of like the buffer, and I love the fact that you can do the end trigger and the start trigger and the mid trigger to get that right, to get just what you need.
Right.
And I can see that being very valuable, like if I'm shooting sports or nature. If I'm waiting for something that I just don't know when it's gonna happen, I can hit that buffer right when it does. I can hit that record button. I just got to make sure that I time it right. So that's for the FS5. The low light performance is really good, I think. really, really good. I love the different options in picture profiles and color modes. You have your Canon C200, I think, that currently would compete with that. For the C200, it's something that it kind of drives me insane, right? Because I would love to have the raw capabilities with the Canon colors, which is obviously very, very gorgeous.
Yep. Yeah, because you're not using raw. You're not doing too much raw stuff on a Sony.
No. Well, almost nothing at all. It's non-existent. I usually record, if I want higher quality, I'll record ProRes on the Odyssey 7Q Plus, but that's it. It's so crazy. Like, I would use the raw from the C200 quite often, but I would equally use the lower end image quality, I guess,
Right.
It kind of has raw capabilities, but then the lower end is basically equivalent to a Sony A7S A6300, kind of, sort of, but then it misses that middle ground where it doesn't give you like ProRes or anything in that sense. It's just 8-bit, 420 recording MP4s. It's very small files. But from what I hear, they're very nice. They look really, really nice. So
yeah, I have a bunch of friends who have the C series and they love them, but I don't see moving forward them sticking with it. I don't think it's going to progress. I think it's moving on to other companies at this point because Canon's just falling behind.
Yeah, and so this camera right now comes in at 7,500, which is equivalent to this FS7 right now.
Yes.
So the FS7 provides the beginning ground and the mid ground, but they don't have the raw capabilities unless you're going external.
Right.
The C200 has the beginning ground and the raw and the higher end ground raw, but they don't have that middle ground. They make you go external for the middle ground, which is so weird.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
So there's that. Good low light performance, good autofocus. That's something that I got to definitely give Canon praise for.
Yep.
Have really, really good autofocus. All these cameras, by the way, have 2 XLR inputs.
So the C200, I'm looking at specs here as we go too, because I don't know some of these, but the C200 is 120 in HD. That's as fast as it goes, or high speed 120 in 1080. Is that right?
Yeah, so it seems like it does 4K up to 60 frames per second. However, and that's in RAW, but when you go up to 60, you go down to 10-bit.
Right. So that's a pro then of the FS7 is it goes up to 60 in full 4K as well. In full 4K. In 10-bit. Everything's 10-bit. It doesn't drop down at all. And then it goes up to 180 in HD. 180 frames.
That's good.
Yeah. So, so for me, if we're going to go bang for buck, right? And this is exactly why I got the FS7 at the time, was because it was the best bang for buck. It has 2 XLR inputs. It goes to 180 at HD. It goes to 60 at 4K. It has S-Log. It has internal NDs. It's just, to me, in that price range, and I think it still holds true. It's for me the best bang for your buck. It's an all-around camera that you can shoot. You could shoot ENG stuff with it. It's a great documentary camera for running gun stuff like that. It's a little bigger than the FS5, but it's still very good. It comes with a like handle and it sits on your shoulder, so ergonomically it's very comfortable. And you could also get very cinematic shots with it too if you want to shoot narrative stuff. So for me, it's one of the best bang for your bucks out there.
Yeah. I think it is. Now, for me, I don't know. It would have to, it just literally comes down to, for me, it's the FS5. And let me tell you why, though.
Sure.
It comes down to the way that I shoot, as in terms of bang for your buck. The sitting on the shoulders thing, it's useless to me. I'm 6'3". it's useless. I
You're
cannot
so tall.
I cannot follow a subject with the
Right.
camera sitting on my shoulder because I'm always going to be angling down.
Right.
So I'm never going to use that feature.
Well, you can, just so you know, I don't know if you ever thought about it, you can flip that, you can flip it up so it's kind of like a bar facing up on the side, and you can hold it as if it was like, you know, it was like a side handle. So I mean, it's not exactly how it's meant to be, but you can do that, which is just a way to shoot down here too. But yeah, I'm 5'11", so it's a lot easier for me. And I've done some doc work where I have to run around and try to smooth it out. So that shoulder thing actually worked out for me. So
right, it just doesn't for me. Now, it definitely works out that the FS5 is smaller because I have to shoot from kind of my chest, right? My camera usually has to be at my chest level. So kind of my upper chest level is basically your shoulder level. So that's exactly where I would need the camera.
I'm not that small, but
all right. Hey man, embrace it. So it's usually, so I have to keep it on my upper chest. That means I have to be holding it for a long period of time. And the FS7 is not a light camera. The FS5 is a very light camera.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
So the difference in weight works out for me for the way that I have to shoot it. Now, internal recording wise, yeah, the FS7, there are so many times where I wish, shooting handheld, it helps out so much. But once I started adding the Odyssey 7Q Plus and all that stuff, it starts to add a little bit more weight. And I would even argue that maybe I wouldn't have to add that if I had the FS5 and I can get that 10-bit and 4K, then it would kind of probably be the same weight. You know what I mean? So there's different things that I can give and take from it in that scenario.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so it came down to price. I didn't have to, I can still get that quality. I could actually get better quality in the 4K 422 that the FS7 provides with my Odyssey 7Q Plus. But again, we're not discussing accessories. We're discussing internal recording. So in terms of quality internal recording, best bang for your buck, I would agree the FS7 is good, but for the way that I shoot, it was just more feasible and reasonable for me to get the FS5. And that's pretty much what I based my entire purchase on. Yeah. Now back to the topic at hand. I think the FS7 is probably one of the best bang for your bucks out there. There's some people that would not ignore that, but they'll kind of stay loyal to Canon, right? And justify a purchase of getting the C300 Mark II, which is a gorgeous camera. There's no denying that. It's such a gorgeous camera.
But specs wise, I don't know how you can deny that the FS7 offers more. I mean, I get arguing the point that they might like Canon's better and what the visual you're getting out of it. And I'm biased to Sony's because I own them and I like them. But on paper, it's giving you so much more for the price. And I'll give you, we've talked about this before too, and what might compete with it, as well as the EVA 1. Right? I mean, on paper, that's going to compete for the best bang for your buck. And now I don't know that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing yet. I haven't really seen one or know anyone that's used it and that it's pumping out all the specs that it's supposed to be. But if it is, that potentially could be. That's
yeah. That's why I had said that people would maintain their loyalty to Canon and pay the higher price for basically the same specs.
Right.
It is the same specs. I got to admit.
For the C, what are you saying? For C300?
For C300 Mark II, right? And again, that C200 just sits in a weird limbo state where, like, you have to kind of pick and choose what do you want. You want the raw and then settle for the lower end of the spectrum with regards to video quality. You have to kind of decide which one you want to shoot in one day. And if you want to do in the middle grade, you're going to have to use an external recorder, which it's kind of weird.
It's really weird, man. It's really weird.
If they would give that internal, I would say that would be a top contender right now. Yeah. Super top contender. But unfortunately they don't. They can't just give everything. That's Canon. So I gotta say, man, the Panasonic EVA 1, I know I was super excited about it when I first started hearing it, and I even made an entire episode rambling about how amazing this camera is gonna be and whatnot. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed at what I've seen so far. I gotta see the camera for myself. I gotta handle the footage myself, see the raw files, color the raw files, just play with it myself. Yep. but from what I've seen online, what everyone has been posting has not been anything that's out of this world. Like I've seen stuff like that from the A7S too, and you know, from the Panasonic Gh4. Like I've seen the same thing.
Yeah,
it's just nothing out of this world.
I agree.
I you know, and there have been several people that have posted about it. So so I would say, did we miss any cameras? Any current cameras right now?
Yeah, I mean, are we going up to the C500? Have we talked about that?
I don't even think we have to. Like,
yeah,
what the heck? C500. You don't even belong in this conversation.
No, it's so.
C500 has been out for so long.
Yeah, and then there's this.
Before,
I mean, have you seen the C700? That's that thing's absurd.
But that's up there. That's up there with the Alexa Minis and the Reds and stuff. So, but the C500 is
it's getting outdone by the C300 Mark II.
My A6300 shoots what the C500 shoots.
Is it even for sale anymore? I don't even know that it's a camera anymore. I'm looking right now. I don't even see it.
Yeah, look at that. I'm getting a printer here.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting a printer, and anything that's C500 is no longer available.
It's not exactly
old school 4K camera that cost like 15 grand. It was so much money for that camera, but
it doesn't even shoot 4K internal. It shoots it external.
Oh, it's not internal?
No, you have to. C500 always shot.
Oh yeah, 4K raw output. That's right.
External.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's like equivalent. That's like equivalent to the A7S, the first series.
Yeah, exactly.
Shame on you. So I think after discussing all these specs for all these cameras that have been released, I would have to say, man, it's hard because I wish I've had some hands-on experience with the EVA 1. And the C100.
Well, all right, here, let me mention another camera so that people don't hate on us as well. Blackmagic. We didn't talk about like the Ursa Mini.
Oh my goodness, how did I forget that?
Yeah, so we gotta bring that in.
Right, so you have the Ursa Mini 4.6K. Let's go with the Pro. Let's say.
Yep.
Great camera, beautiful. There's nothing.
That's a
$6,000.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful image. I love the raw capabilities. It's a very, very specific camera, and let me tell you why. It tops out at 800 ISO. I could never use that for my work.
Yeah.
Right. I could never. I mean, I could maybe for like 30 to 40% of what I do, but that's it. You know, and then I have to go to another camera. It's not very versatile. Like it's a production camera. You need fixed lighting. You need and I think it's a Super 35 sensor, right?
Yeah, it's a small sensor.
Well,
wait, is it Super 35?
No, Super 35, I think. If I'm not mistaken. Or is it Micro Four Thirds? No, I think it's Super 35.
No, you're right. Super 35. So yeah, it's not that small. It's
it's
it's a
FS7
or anything.
It's a good size sensor, but the low light capabilities, it's unusable.
Yeah.
When you're shooting, you know, running gun style, you're gonna need lighting, you know.
Yeah. It has all the regular stuff, the XLRs, the ND internal NDs. It shoots up to 60 frames at 4.6K, which is cool. But yeah, you're right. It really is a production camera. And it's funny because they have a camera that's like the Blackmagic production camera, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like all their cameras are like that. I don't love working with them. They do spit out a beautiful image.
I don't
love working with them.
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing a nice big budget production where I want to shoot everything raw, I would definitely consider this camera because all my lighting is going to be fixed. But I would also consider the C200 as well. But I don't know, the C200 is kind of light. I don't know, it's C200 light, but you know, for all this stuff, I would probably just get a red or something. But anyways, in terms of bang for your buck, I definitely don't think this one makes the cut. For sure, because it's just such a limited camera. Like I mean, you're getting a good bang, right? Because you get good raw footage, but that's it. That's all you get, you know?
Yeah.
So if I would even say the C200 is a much better bang for your buck because you get raw and you get, you know, the lower end Um, oh, actually, I'm sorry. So the Ursa Mini also does ProRes internal. So you kind of get
ProRes and Cinema DNG, I believe. So it does both.
Right. So Cinema DNG would be the raw.
Cinema DNG are still our MXF files. I don't know if they're necessarily. I guess it could be the raw. Yeah.
The Cinema DNG file from the Sonys are raw.
Are they? See, like with like Red cameras, you can record proxies, or you could just record straight to ProRes or Cinema. What am I saying? Cinema DNG. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of DNX HD.
Okay.
Just confused in my head. You're right. Yeah. So you're right with the raw DNX HD is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Ursa Mini also does ProRes internal. So it does give me that mid grade. So there's that. All right. So you have the Ursa Mini that does raw and ProRes. So you got the mid grade and you got the high end grade, but you don't get that lower end grade, which, I guess you could do without. But then you got the C200 that has the low end grade and the high grade, which is raw, but you don't have that mid grade. Right. But then the Canon C200 also has fantastic autofocus and obviously really good low light performance, which the Ursa Mini is non-existent. So there you go. I would say the C200 would be a much better bang for your buck with, I guess the way that I shoot again. So that's something that would be more valuable to me. But there's that. I don't know. I think after all of this, I would say that probably the Sony FS7 would still be the best bang for your buck. The way that I shoot aside, my height aside, I would say the FS7 Mark I is the best bang for your buck.
Yeah, that's a great statement. Make sure the Mark I bang for your buck. Yeah, because then you're spending another couple extra grand for pretty much just variable ND. I can't even remember what the other update was. There was one other thing. I can't remember.
I have no idea.
I just know it wasn't intriguing enough to upgrade. That's for sure.
Yeah, for no one. Yeah. I had friends that had the FS7, and they all say the same thing. Like, are you guys kidding me? Like, everybody was super upset, and I guess that this kind of goes against what I said about Sony earlier. They listen to their market. Yeah. But I guess they listen to their market with regards to what sells the most in terms of the A7S series series. I don't know. I feel like they saw the project at hand. They looked at the FS7. They said, how can we improve this? Let's add a few more features and sell it for
it's funny because that's
a lot more money.
So you're right. With the lower end cameras, I guess they really do listen to the prosumer and make the right changes. But with the FS7, with the FS5, when they added the continuous slow motion that you had to pay for, it just didn't seem worth it, right? Like all these upgrades for these higher end cameras, they're doing a pretty crappy job with, unfortunately. So hopefully they figure that out. But I'm happy with what they provided, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that just goes to show like how good the FS7 is. Like, what else can you upgrade?
It's true.
It's that.
It's very true. I mean, until you get 120 at 4K or something.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Like that. Like, it's got everything. It's got everything.
If they figure out how to make a better processor that could do raw add raw to that internal, like
that would be a huge upgrade.
Come on now, that would be very close to the perfect camera. But even then, there's never going to be a such thing as a perfect camera. Yeah. All right, I think that just about does it. We have the winners are the lower end beginner scale for the best bang for your buck is the Sony A6300 at $750 with everything that it gives you. And for the higher end scale would be the Sony FS5. So congratulations, Sony. You guys won this one.
They killed it.
It definitely it goes to show how Sony is doing really good in the market and why everyone is going toward Sony. Like, you constantly see people leaving Canon all the time and going to Sony because Sony is really putting things out there, giving us filmmakers the tools to do our jobs. Canon just makes you pay for it. They make you work for that. you got to love Canon. They've been in the game for a very long time, but Sony has basically listened to their market. That's how this whole thing works. That's capitalism for you. You do what your market tells you, and then
and you win.
Buy your product.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you everyone that was listening in, that joined us live. Once again, know that we are on YouTube. Go over to the iFilmmaker podcast YouTube channel and subscribe to get these notifications when we go live, and listen in, join in on the conversation. Thank you for everyone that joined in live. Definitely appreciate that, guys. Go check out that BTS video that Mr. Ceratelli made over at the Jersey Filmmaker YouTube channel. That looks really, really cool. I'm going to put a link to all that stuff on the show notes for this episode. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. We definitely appreciate that. It helps us with the analytics and everything for the show. And go ahead and share this episode with whoever you think would benefit. If you're always having a back and forth with your friends on which camera is better, let them know what we said. So with that being said, Mr. Ceratelli, see you on the next one.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank you everyone that joined in. See ya.
Later.